Imagine you and I are standing on a subway where you are afraid that I may blow myself up and I'm afraid that you may push me on the tracks. Do either of us want to live in a world like that? Islamophobia, the fear of Islam or Muslims. And if you are suffering from it right now after the Paris tragedy, you may consider me a threat as well. My name is Muhammad Jibran Nasir and I am a Muslim. And Muslims like me have been attacked in Australia and North America and Europe, which are otherwise known as tolerant and progressive societies, because of this growing fear. But I'm not here as a Muslim to complain about Islamophobia. I'm here to understand your fear. I'm here to empathize. Now, primarily, we are afraid of something for two reasons. Number one, the fear of the unknown. If you think about it, when we don't know something that well, we tend to be afraid of it. And how well does an average non-Muslim know about Islam living in Australia, Europe or North America? But then again, you may not be an expert on other religions either, yet you're not afraid of them. So that brings me to point number two, perhaps the more plausible reason why you may be suffering from Islamophobia, and it's because you've been told to be afraid of Islam and suspicious of Muslims. You were told to be afraid of Islam when George W. Bush called the global war on terror a crusade. You were told to be afraid of Islam when the very security agencies which were there to make you safe, like the TSA, made it almost mandatory for Muslim men and women to line up separately in immigration lines, and it was considered normal to be suspicious of Muslims. You were told that Muslims cannot be trusted when NYPD and FBI were caught spying on Muslim youth in universities and campuses. You were told that Muslims are more dangerous when Muslim convicts were called terrorists, whereas for similar or graver crimes, non-Muslim convicts were called racist or temporarily insane. You were told that Islam, and whatever it means or stands for, is dangerous when perverse interpretations of Quran and Sunnah and the Sharia, as represented by terror outfits, were accepted by right-wing media as credible interpretation of the Quran, Sunnah and Sharia. So today, when anti-Islam rallies are being taken out in America and Germany, and petitions are being signed in Great Britain not to allow in more Syrian refugees, and Muslims are being attacked in Canada and Australia, I can understand where the fear is coming from. I can understand how the fear is turning into hate and hate into violence. But perhaps you need to pause for a moment and reflect that violence will only beget more violence. If you need to embark on the road to peace, you need to communicate and reach out to Muslims living in your countries, and you will find them everywhere. In government, in politics, in media, in sports, in your armed forces, in academia, and at times driving you around in the taxis. Communicate with them and learn from them what Islam is, or for that matter, what their dreams and aspirations are, and you'll get to know that the same as yours, everybody at the end of the day want a happy life with a decent pay and a decent future for their children. You're not much different. And if you do not communicate, then this ignorance which has given birth to Islamophobia will only grow. And just like Islam has been misused by radicals to turn Muslim youth into extremists, Islamophobia may be misused to turn non-Muslims into radical as well. And just like I spent the past few minutes trying to empathize with you, I urge you to empathize with the Muslim world at large and try and understand our fears and why some of us may have begun to hate Western values and turn violent. It's perhaps because, being democracies, the action of your governments are seen as representation of the aspirations of the people, even though that may be far from the truth. Actions like drone attacks in Pakistan and Yemen, killing thousands of civilians and hundreds of children. Actions like violating UN resolutions, killing hundreds of thousands of people, committing war crimes, and finding no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Actions like locking up hundreds of Muslim youth in Guantanamo Bay without any right to a fair trial, and actions like refusing to acknowledge the plight of the Palestinian people who are denied their fundamental rights every single day. Such flawed policies and blatant human rights violations make the West appear biased, unfair, and a tyrant to the Muslim world. And an average Muslim man and woman may be afraid that his or her country may be next on the false premise of finding weapons of mass destruction. This fear is exploited by the terrorists, and that is what leads to their success in recruiting more people. This fear has been exploited in the name of Hinduism, Christianity, and Judaism as well. This fear is there because of lack of empathy. Lack of empathy at your end and lack of empathy at my end. This lack of empathy has allowed terror organizations to grow. This lack of empathy has allowed Western governments to get away with human rights violations. This lack of empathy allows governors to refuse refuge to Syrian refugees. This lack of empathy is why Donald Trump can make preposterous claims like having special IDs for Muslims and yet be a popular candidate in the US presidential race. And this lack of empathy is why tomorrow you and I may be afraid of standing next to each other on the subway. Let's defeat fear together. Let's empathize.
Yeah, there's not evil in me. I pray for my Muslim brothers and sisters.
Hold on.
I pray for the murdering to stop.
None of us want murder. Listen, none of us want murder. None of us want any of this.
That's not true, though.
No, it's true. None of us want murder.
Maybe you guys don't.
No real Muslim wants murder.
No true Muslim.
No, just like no Christian wants genocide and the Holocaust.